Hello, founders. We're here with a special guest and friend of mine, Claudio. Man, how long has it been?
It's been a year and about a year, roughly a
Yeah,
year.
year.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, when you first came to us, you were raising funds for your venture. So let's get to the too long did not read for everybody listening to this. So in the time that we've been together and through the course of your startup, how much money have you raised?
Total like just slightly under $500,000.
Okay.
Total. Yep.
And then how did you start your company? Did you bootstrap it? Did you start with an
Yep.
investment?
No, I bootstrapped it from the jump. I started with one angel investor just because I already had some customers lined up to move on to the platform. So I didn't want to take on too much too soon.
I remember working with you on your initial pitch decks
Yeah.
and saying, wow, this is such an important product. And we're going to get to that in a
Yeah.
moment. What other
Mhm.
types of investors did you talk to and how did it all come together? Like,
I had initially raised capital with friends, family, and associates. That initial round, right? I think we all do that. And I had a couple of small checks cut. I think total would probably checks ranged from 10K and up to that 23. And then I really didn't take on any investment after that first 6 months or 4 months, I'd say, because I already had sales and I was living off the revenue. And then we had closed a big school deal, so I really stretched that out. I didn't raise capital for about 2 years after that to go into a pre-seed round, which remember I was in me and you had first started talking about that, where it kind of made enough revenue to where it should have exceeded the pre-seed, but I never took on genuine seed money. From there, I did a secure bond with a platform where I was able to raise money via a bond. And that
nice.
one was about 214K that I raised on a debt instrument.
Yeah, so you found creative ways to raise money, which is
Yep.
really important for founders to do these days. And then just recently, you had some exciting news. Share with
Yeah.
everybody what happened.
Yeah, we got acquired in late January, early February by X2 Engine by David Buchanan. It was an exit where I made a really swift choice, and he did too. We went really fast. We really liked where he was going. He loved where we were at, and we took the investment on as a pre-IPO stock. So I was able to sell off 51% of the company, put it in his hands, and still stay on, still stay on board. I kind of seen where he's at right now with where he wants to go. I'm sitting on my hands right now, so I'm pretty antsy to get back into the work, help other founders, and contribute back to the community because it was a stressor. It still is like, I'm in awe still. It's exciting, but it was definitely a good deal. It made a lot of sense for me and my investors and everybody that's involved.
Tell us then, what is your startup? So let's get right back to the beginning. What problem were you solving and what were you building?
We built out virtual classrooms for kids was really it. Like when you think of Zoom, Slack, TeamViewer, Calendly, texting, all the forms of communication, we saw that there was an over redundancy in communication. And I felt the need that we needed to have it in one platform, one license, one learning mechanism for schools. Because when I started looking at the landscape of the telecommunication space, overwhelmingly like services on top of service, stack technology on top of stack technology. Then you got training. It was a lot. It was a whole mouthful to manage for IT directors, CTOs. I mean, managing all that technology that didn't integrate into one, then you got to train on those things. So we felt the solution was one platform, one easy to use service to go alongside with one bill, right? So simplifying things.
If you had the
Mhm.
luxury of not having to raise because you were funding based on revenue, how much money were you making in your day?
First year, we did about slightly under 400,000, and I had little to no debt that year. I didn't take on any loans that first year or any kind of debt, just me and the investors. The second year, we did about slightly under 1 million. The second year, and the third year, I took a little bit of a downslope because my brother had passed away. That was like my best friend, so I had a little depression, but I bounced back. And it was a life lesson for sure. And then projecting on upward. Now, keep in mind, this is all during COVID too.
Sure.
So yeah, so this was not a easy feat by any means. Every dollar was not that easy. So that last year was a pivotal moment for me because I was trying to fund. When you as a founder, you tend to try to lean on your profit to fund your business, to hire and expand in your markets. And I really, that's where I felt like inexperience for me in growth is really, I would say, piece of advice is to go slow to go fast. So after that year, I found Startups.com, and I was like, I need expert help. I need to find advisors that have been through this. And the tools that Startups.com provided, I'm deep into reading and understanding philosophy. So a lot of the things you were teaching, I was like, man, this is awesome. All the things that I felt and I was going through, I started to realize, take deep breaths, go slow, go slow to go fast, and really articulate what you're trying to accomplish. What I did by going slow was I was able to clean up a lot of the excess spending. Like I was always throwing dollars at a problem, and really wasn't the dollars. It wasn't even the problem. I was going about the situation wrong. I wasn't writing it out. And when I wrote it out, and see my COO, CJ Ariano, who's a principal, he helped me a lot understand some methodical systems when it comes to hey, like really think things through, because I'm a hunter. I like to go, 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 and find and go, 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 go. And he was the yin to my yang, which was perfect. So then mix that in with Startups.com, where I have you as a mentor and all the other mentors on Startups.com. And then it helped me realize, dang, I really missed some corners where I should have went straight for a little longer instead of trying to cut a corner, and really believe that I was making those right decisions. That was the crazy part, was I was totally in my own way. And that's okay, right? It's okay to be dumb. It's okay to not understand things. It's okay but you got to admit it. You got to admit it on responsibility. Call your investors and say, hey, I effed up and I'm going to make things right. And here's how, right? Long story short, it was going a lot slower, like, because I would always be raising, that's one thing I learned, always be raising capital. And one thing I realized was I fell out of the sales queue out of the things that got me there, right? And one thing, when you go back to the fundamentals of what got you there, it makes it a lot easier, because as a founder, what you'll do is you'll find yourself in year one and you'll do anything to get your business to grow. You'll do anything. You'll work as hard, you'll go as long as you could. And when you go fast forward 5 years in the future, you find yourself not doing the fundamental things that got you there, because you think you're better than the first 5 steps. And I realized that as I've come to fruition and my exit, I'm like, man, I would totally love to just go back to that moment and just see if I could go, not necessarily harder, but just a lot smarter ways, and appropriate my time, because I would have made better decisions. And, hiring is probably one of the worst skill sets I've learned that I have. But now I have a unique way about going about partnering and not necessarily taking on staff and employees too much too soon.
Now that you joined the Exit Club, I think you can relate to all of us. We look back and we say, we could have just squeezed that little extra value, or we could have saved ourselves some headaches. So don't worry, you're in good company. I think about that all
Yeah.
the time. And
Yeah.
try not to let the regret eat you up from the inside moving forward. Let's talk about fundraising in general. So, because you are a community leader, you help us. We really appreciate your presence and all the value you contribute to Startups.com, our community. You're
Yeah.
looking at all these other founders, and they are trying to raise money right from scratch, that pre-seed round. What's the
Yeah.
best piece of advice that you could give them?
Your enthusiasm's gonna die really quick. Like it's and totally know that's normal, right? No matter who pitches your capital raise for you, whether that's a marketing team you hire or it's an introduction, you always have to remember that the VCs are really try to really understand their mandates before you get to that initial meeting. I would use a lot of things like AI to scrape their website, rip as much data as you can, look at previous deals before you even get to the meeting. Try to ask for references and contact those references. Just see what those deals were like to deal with them to get them to say yes. Then I've had about 40 to 50 interviews thanks to you guys and to a couple of my own efforts, right? Because really, once you get that list, you hit the phone and you dial, and now you become a salesman. And really, what you're selling is hey, we're going to make money together. And they hear all those things and they're all fancy. We're results oriented. So you're going to just know you're going to fail a lot and often, and just keep failing. And that's the best piece of advice, is that if it's just don't take it personal. Enthusiasm, always keep it high, but don't take self-guilt and look at yourself at what you're doing wrong. A lot of the times it's not that they didn't understand what you were doing or what you're talking about. A lot of the times it just comes down to a couple things, which is, people buy from people and plans, and either they believe in you and they believe in your plan. So you're one thing and the plan's another. Because really what the VC wants to know is how are you going to grow their capital and then make money and get paid back. So speak to that more than you do your actual service, because the service itself, they want to at least know that if you got your TAM and your market, you got your market dynamic set. That's great. But beyond the data, how are you going to make this a profitable move for us to do business together, and speak to that? So have a slide to say how you're going to, what your plan is. Some VCs are just, they're cold. It's very cold world out there, and you cannot, like, you taught me this, and this is funny. A VC is going to want 20 to 30% off the rip, like, just, before it gets just get, and I was like, man, it's, don't be, one piece of advice, do not be committed to equity ownership when you're capital raising, because what happens is I think a lot of founders hold on and cling on to equity like it's the smartest thing right now. Like when you're raising capital, your equity is really worth $0 when you think about it, because no matter how much you made, no matter how much profit you have, if you have a lot of profit, they're going to wonder where the profit went. Then you got to talk to how you spent that, which I've been in those conversations and they weren't fun. You have to be loose with a little bit of the equity. Don't lose too much control, but you also want to have those barriers in there where they're going to come after more than 30%. One of them offered like 45% and wanted my second child, my first, like I was like, no. And I could have made some other moves before this one had come up, and this exit, if you would, it was really strategic on my part. I thought it through and I executed on it, and I really have good reason for why I did it.
Yeah, it's a good principle that you put out there is research the investors. Not all investors are created equal. And through that research, you're going to understand their investment thesis and how their funds or their
Yep.
investment theses apply to the type of capital they have, how much they have. Some are looking for a 2.5 exit is fine if you do it in a reasonable time period, like 2 years, and you just do a quick flip. Others are
Yep.
saying, no, if you're not in it for 10 to 15 years and go public, unicorn style, then we're not
Yeah.
interested. There are so many variations in between. So you must have hit all the sides of it and had quite a bit of an education.
Man, I tell you what, I definitely am happy that I took every step of the way. There was no skipping steps, like you said, Ed. I think of my angel investor all the way up to you. The two things that you both had in common were fundamentals. And you were like, there's no skipping. There's no skip. I don't care what advisor you have or who or what you're doing. And every time you try to make a shortcut, I promise you it comes back to fundamentals and business fundamentals. It's very difficult to stick to those things, man. It is. It's like Kobe Bryant shooting 1,000 shots a day. And we're not normal. That's one thing. You as a founder, if you're listening to this, watching this, you are not normal, and it's okay. You're in our space. Like you're not normal. You're not supposed to be. That's why who you are. The reason I say that is because you'll start to understand you get compounded stresses over being an entrepreneur year over year. The stress gets compounded. Capital raising efforts get compounded stress. Look at the investor's background and their history, because a lot of the times, man, the cheapest investor is going to be your worst investor, because they're going to always be, where are you at, this, that, and the other. And you always want to have an investor beyond cash. I just realized that, like, I got to have something more than cash though. But at the end of the day, you need to grow. And that has to be your core dialogue, is how can they help me beyond the dollar?
So I'm curious then, you clearly have some thoughts on why you did this exit. I'm sure a lot of founders will just dream about an exit, and many founders truthfully won't get there. But then there are founders out there that are like, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? So walk us through
Yeah.
your mindset. How are you feeling about your exit now?
You're always going to want to feel like the stars align, but they don't in my rule. You know that perfect business will never be on time. All you founders out there, there's going to be a point in time where you do cross an acquisition offer. I was, reached out to when we had first started talking. I was like, yeah, well, whenever you always hear somebody out that wants to potentially buy, just see what they have to offer, what their plan is, right? Hear them out. What happened was I felt like this is a good opportunity for me to take on this acquisition through his stock. And, I told him about deficits and cash flow issues that needed to get healed. And I was like, I would consider that in these circumstances. And I didn't really honestly think he was going to get back to me. I really didn't. I was like, I don't think he's, because, you start to go through that when people see debt, they run, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, well, you can't get to profit without, you can't get to, the joy is in the journey and not the destination. You're going to sell your capital raise or your sale to somebody and make it pretty as day. I started the other way, like what you told me to do. Tell them every reason why they shouldn't. And I was like, yeah, right. And it's like, then you got no worries about an offer coming back. Because then it's like, wow, all right, then they're serious. So why I did what I did, I knew that, one, if I sold it for cash, I would get taxed right away. So I didn't want to do that. If I sold it for stock, that what he was doing, as he was pretty much building a technology SPAC and he was backing into it, doing a roll-up strategy, and he had experience taking companies to an IPO. I was like, well, he's a lot closer to an IPO. That's always where every entrepreneur's dream is, to go to an IPO. And I was like, well, this is my opportunity to fast track into that without having to sacrifice a lot, right? So he was interested in 51% because he wanted to use this roll-up strategy to go to a SPAC. So his investment thesis made a lot of sense to me. It would make sense to a sophisticated founder, to a sophisticated investor. So I went ahead and took the deal. And I was like, well, the worst case scenario is, hey, I have the stock and I know it's going to go, and the business is, and his strategy strong and his background strong. Did a lot of research before I obviously we agreed to it. And I'll be honest with you, man, it was a great experience with him. Right now, it's a matter of the future and what I'm going to do next, which is probably join Startups.com is what I'm hoping to do with you guys. Because I'm excited to help entrepreneurs, because it's like, because as founders, you cling on to things. And when you cling on to it, it's like holding water in your hands. You cannot do that. Like you have to remember you're the most selfless founder in your company. And the future of it is going to have to be, sometimes you got to learn to let go of certain grips that you always had. And that's the hardest part, was letting go, and then understanding it's okay to let things not be okay the way that you want them to be. My whole thought was, now's a good time to step back, take a deep breath, and then kind of reassess and let things move forward on this exit, and not be so high strung on what's going to happen with my customers, what's going to happen with this, and be so worried. I kind of dropped that took me a while, man. It took a good month to really let go,
Yeah, a lot of people take more time. I want to
Yeah.
point out just a few principles for everybody else to look at. First is the majority of unicorns, a high percentage, are actually second time or third time founders. So it's a journey, and that's
Yeah.
what you just sign up for. You're going to be a serial entrepreneur. I know you're a go-getter. That's going to happen there.
Yeah.
Next is, I think founders need to realize that exits are not as glorious as they paint out in books or the magazines or movies. There's typically an earnout. There's typically some type of period. Like, I'm on an 8-year earnout, right? And a
Well,
lot of people
yeah.
go, how can you do that? I say, I didn't plan for an 8-year earnout. I wanted to just monetize. So you do what you have to do. So it's still
Right.
work even after you've exited. But then now
Yeah.
you've got this clean slate. And what's going to work well for you, Claudio, is how generous you are and how much you share and just how open you are. And so
Yeah.
100% for sure, you're part of our community leadership. I know other founders are going to want to
Yeah.
talk to you. And I want to invite
Yeah.
everybody to reach out, and I want to connect with as many people, and let's work together and figure out what your next
Yeah.
step is going to be.
I encourage everybody that's listening, don't take Startups.com, the community resources, for granted. I mean, there's a lot in there. It's like the encyclopedia for entrepreneurship, and what a heaven sent, right? And as a founder, you have to learn to live in humility and surrender your ego so fast. Even when you feel you know everything about your business. I realized how very little I know about entrepreneurs, right? When I was like, wow, I did not know all this. It was like I felt like Doctor Strange learning from you guys, like and like everything about you was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And it was like, wow, I thought, and you have to take it in and regurgitate it. Everything prepared me for it was like almost perfect. Seemed like when I got the call, I was ready, not just verbally, but mentally, and everything was kind of aligned perfectly. So it made sense for him. He's like, wow, this guy really gets it and he understands it. And he was excited just as much as I was about it. He loved the product. I loved his product. I'm on my mission to help with Startups.com and help the community out, and let people know that this is we're not normal, and we're alone, but we're also in it together.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Claudio.
Yeah, for sure.